Hello everyone, this is Melanie from Melanie B's Creative Studio, and what do I have in front of me but is the much awaited, much anticipated 3 Shades of Grey survival kit. And the reason it says survival kit is because this is a paint by number survival kit. It's like, how do I survive paint by numbers without it? Well, you could, but it really will save the day. So it took about 5 months to get this little guy produced, and actually it's probably more like 6 months because the concept came when I did the video about 3 Shades of Grey, and my husband Jim gave me the idea about priming with gray instead of white under certain colors, and it was like light bulb, and you know, from there it was just the wheels started to turn. Now before I go any further about the contents of the kit, how to use it, or anything else, I need to say this. This kit was a labor of love, but I did not do this alone. I need to make sure I give credit where credit is due. I had never dealt with a company on making paint. I hadn't dealt with any manufacturing companies. I'd never made a paint by number kit. I'd never done any of that. I didn't have resources. I had no clue where to start to customize things like this. So the first person I thought of, because I loved the quality of their paints and I loved the people behind the company, were Florin and Viorica from Opalberry. So I reached out to Florin. He said, I'll be happy to speak to the people who make my kits for me and, you know, see what I can do to help you get it produced. And I was like, that would be amazing. Well, I'm just gonna tell you, 6 months later, I could not have done this without him. He has been incredible. And I say him, and I know Viorica is behind the scenes as his spouse, as his partner in life. I know that she is the guiding factor in the household, and you know, he probably couldn't do, you know, half of what he does without her support at home and in their business. So I definitely want to make sure that even though I did not communicate with Viorica, I want to make sure that she gets credit as well, because this man would talk to me in the middle of the night because he's in Romania and I am in the United States, and I would send him a message assuming he would not be awake, but he would not have his messenger turned on, and he would respond and I'd be like, what are you doing up? Do not respond to my messages at 3 in the morning. But you know, the point is that he was the go-between for everything. If there was a problem, he handled it. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of hours that this man put in for me and for this kit. So I am humbled over the amount of time that he invested for free. So when it came time for the kits to be purchased and sent to me, because he knew this is an exclusive kit for Ashland's website and Ashland's website alone. So I asked him, are you interested in selling these kits at your shop? And he said he was. So he is the only other store that will have the rights to sell this kit besides Ashland's shop at Melanie B's Creative Supplies. So I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that and why he's going to be carrying them at his store. I would love for you to give Florin the business as well. I just cannot express my gratitude to him enough for the countless hours that he invested of his time for no other reason other than just doing it out of the kindness of his heart and to help a fellow individual see something come to fruition. So kind of a goal and a dream, I guess. So having said that, I want to make sure that you know that the reason I selected Florin was because for all of the paint by number kits that I try and I've tested, I love the paints in their kits, and that is why I reached out to him and said, can you help me? because I wanted those paints. So those are the paints that are in Melanie B's 3 Shades of Grey survival kit, so that you will get a quality paint. You're also gonna notice when I open the kit, you're gonna get the foam trays for the storage as well. That's as important to me because I like the idea of being able to transport the kit. That's why the box is for storage as well as just for being cute. Let's take a jump right on in here. Now, I do hope you take a moment when you receive your kit that you will look at some of the fun little quirky additions that were added in the design, because you know me, I'm just a smart aleck and had to throw puns everywhere I possibly could. Even on the front of the box, all the little colorful rainbow housing, and then there's the Grey's house, because the Greys are a family. And I know I mentioned this in another video where I introduced this as kind of a prototype, kind of gave you a sneak peek. This is the final kit, obviously. It says, welcome the Greys to the neighborhood, and underneath it just says, they've lived here all along, but they just always seem to blend in. So, poor Greys. So there are a bunch of little things like that around the outside of the box, because y'all know me. All right, so opening it up, we have the story of the Greys. Now, I'm gonna read this and people are gonna be like, wah. So the Greys each have a personality. And the reason that I did that was because if you can remember that the Greys are people and they each have a personality, when you go to use them, it is a lot easier to remember how you use them in your painting, in your project. So for example, I'm going to read you the backstory in case you did not see the very first 3 Shades of Grey video where I explained how the Greys work. So it says, everyone in town thought they were shady characters with no values, but Jim knew they were really just here to brighten up the neighborhood. If only his wife Melanie would have listened sooner, she could have helped avoid all of the unnecessary work and preparation time wasted on the whites. Now Jim will never let her forget it. Ever. Y'all, that's a true story. Yeah, it's true. All right, so light gray is the social butterfly of the Grey family who likes to keep things bright and cheerful. She brings positivity and sunshine back to those testy, difficult colors like yellows, oranges, reds, and lime greens. She refreshes and renews sunrises and sunsets like you've never experienced before. You will like her best. And that explains why there's 12 light grays in your kit. Medium gray likes to remain a bit of a neutral party. She never gets involved in political discussions or religion, but she does come to the aid of colors who have similar values to her own. Sometimes she'll play nice with the bright and airy friends of light gray, or those with a dark sense of humor that dark gray despises. So dark gray doesn't get out much. He has zero tolerance for transparent dark colors and their attempts at streaking. He will slap some underpaints on any seductive colors who try to reveal what they have hiding underneath. Streaking will not be accepted in Dark's presence, and he has made it his goal to thwart all efforts. The other thing I'm going to refer you to is something right here, which I'm going to go through in a minute. This is a new 3 Shades of Grey digital swatch guide that I developed just to use with your 3 Shades of Grey kit. And we'll be using that today so that you will see how I thought through the kit with this process. Now let's open this up. I almost hate to tear my little sticker in my tissue, but you know I'm gonna have to do it. See, I'll put it back like this so that when I put mine back in here, because this is how extra I am, I can go like this and open it back up. There is no wrong way, y'all. No wrong way. So you'll notice you've got 12 of the light gray. Light gray is the one you're going to use most. Then there are 8 of the medium gray and then 4 of the dark. You're going to use medium gray second most, and then dark gray is going to be the ones that you use the least. So as I go, I will explain that also. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a mini painting and I'm going to show you my original swatch, and then we're going to talk about how to use the new swatch guide with the gray paints and work on a painting using these tools together to make your painting a lot easier from the very beginning. Transparent paints, doesn't matter if you put down 10 layers, it's not going to cover that number and that line. And originally we used to think that white would do it for every color, and it just doesn't seem to work as well as the grays do. So let's get started. Let me get a few things set up and I'll be right back. And I'm going to show you how these things work together to make you feel super successful with your paint by number project. Now, before I move to the painting, let me mention the way the digital swatch guide is going to work. So this is the 3 Shades of Grey swatch guide. It will be titled that when you go to the website at Melanie B's Creative Supplies, where you find all my favorite tools. And the way this works is you pay for it one time. You download it, save it to your computer. After 30 days, the link you get by email will expire. If it expires, you don't download it and save it to your computer. There's, 1,000 customers Ashlyn deals with a month. She can't go back and continue to send you the file, So make sure you save it, because once you buy it, it's yours. You just, you can't share it with other people. That's illegal, but you can print it as many times as you want to. Once you do that, you'll see that the way this is designed, there are 4 to a page. The first thing you're going to do is right here, you're going to cut this line, and it gives you a little bit of instructions, very simple instructions at the bottom. And then cut each of these lines, and it'll give you 4 individual guides, just like this, okay? So I've already gotten one kind of ready to go. And the way I use mine is I put the name of where the kit came from, which this particular case was meetmonet.com. I don't even know if these companies are still in business, but this is how I know what paints this kit belongs to. And then this one is called GeoCity Mini. And I also have, and you will use your original swatch guide. So if you have the original swatch guide, you're going to use it too. And the reason I did it this way, there's a couple reasons actually. I realized that if you had to do your original swatch and you had to do all of the shades of gray and things, this swatch guide was this big and you weren't going to get a lot per page. So the reason we're doing it this way, the original swatch allows you to do 36 paints. Eventually I'll probably make this a little bigger and do 48. So we'll, upgrade this. But you're only going to swatch on this one, the ones that are transparent. So over here, and this one had a lot. This only had 10 paints, but the transparent ones were, let's see, number 1, number 2, number 7, number 8, number 9, and number 10. So over here, I'm going to say number 1, and you'll notice I put the number sign up here. Number 1, I've got a line for me to write the number of which ones I'm going to be swatching and testing with my shades of gray. So here's an O at the top. That's for my original paint color. So that is where I'm going to put each of those colors of paint. Now you might be saying, why did you only do this many lines? I have 12 lines, okay? If you have a kit that has more than 12 paints that are transparent or translucent, replace the paints of those paints. You do not want to have to prime every single bad paint. Get other paints and replace them. I use shipper paints myself, or Artesa's, or just whatever brand of art grade acrylic paints that you have. Even if you pull them from another kit and they're similar in color, there is no point in you having to do more than 12. But let's just say you want to, okay? There are 4 swatches to a sheet, you guys, for a reason. You do not have to cut them in half. Just keep them kept together and keep on going. If you got more than 12 and you want to do 24 of them, keep going and just keep the pieces together and keep on going with it. You don't have to cut them in half. But the point is that if you have more than 12, honestly, I would throw those paints in the trash. And I would replace them. If you haven't seen my Streaky Paints video, then you need to. What is rule number, whatever, 5? Yeah, you need to watch that video. So I mean, as much as I want to sell a 3 Shades of Gray kit for Ashlyn, I'm just going to tell you, I am not going to waste that much time in my life to prime every color in a kit. If I don't have to, I'm replacing those paints first thing. So, anywho, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can get closer. And before I go crazy and start swatching a light, a medium, and a dark gray, why would I waste my time? And so here is where that first video I ever did about the 3 Shades of Gray is going to come in handy. So whether you want to or not, you may want to go refer back to that one. Remember what our postcard said. The light gray is going to be used for our lightest translucent and transparent colors. Yellows, lime greens, reds, oranges, light pinks, light colors, right? Airy colors, sunrises, sunsets, light colors, all right? Colors that are similar in value, tone, tint. So anything that is light. Now white is gonna be one of those that we're gonna put white under, okay? It's white, we're gonna prime with white. But other colors, lime green, I mentioned that right here. Light gray, lime green. These light colors, lime green, that's a yellowish lime green. We know that's going to be a light gray. This one is a kind of a pale greenish blue, so light gray. I'm not going to waste my time swatching medium and dark gray when I know they are too dark for these colors. So even though I have given you spaces for those swatches here, you don't need to do them unless you're confused about the tone or the value. And I'm going to get to those colors here in a minute. That's why I have 2 kits here that we're going to go over. So I want to make sure I cover those bases. So this number 2, you might be looking at that and you say, well, that could be a medium value. That could be a medium tone. So in this case, where you are not sure, then we can do both. We can do a light and a medium because it could fall between a light and a medium. So we will do that today just so I can show you. And we will compare and we will decide which one looks the best in our finished swatch. And that's the one we're gonna go with. All right, so that's what I'm gonna do. Now, other tools that I have handy, I'm not gonna pull them out and show you. I am gonna put the tools in the bottom in the description for you if you need to find the ones that I'm using. Now, I do realize, and I'm gonna tell you this right off the bat, before you start to say, wait a minute, the grays in the paint kit are a different tone. And I'm gonna show you what I mean. These are very cool to neutral tones on the postcard. Do you see how warm to neutral these are? They're wet too. So when they're wet, they're gonna dry differently. So they're not gonna look the same here that they do here. We know this because we're paint by number people and we know how paint changes when it dries. But what I want you to understand is I chose the paints in this set because they work with different tones of colors. So blue reds, orange reds, there are colors that can go either way on a color wheel, and this more neutral gray will work better with that wide range than the cool grays that I tend to work with and what you've seen me work with originally. So that is why I switched things up a little bit when I did the final kit, and these work beautifully too. If you're not sure and you look and you go, gosh, that's really dark. If you put this blue here on these little swatches and say, okay, is this more of a medium? Or is this more of a dark tone? So let's look at it on the swatch. Is this more of a dark or is this more of a medium? And see, I would lean towards the dark here. So my first reaction would be, I'm gonna choose the dark gray as my primer for this color before I would choose the medium. And same with, let's see, and let's look at number 6 here. The 6 looks more of the dark gray tone than it looks medium. So I would go ahead and prime or, swatch the dark gray for these 4 and test them there first. And if it looks too dark, I'll go ahead and swatch the medium. My point is, I'm not gonna try to waste time doing all of these gray swatches if I don't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch all of these colored ones with a light gray swatch. So I'm even going to show you what it would look like if we used a light gray under these whitish colors, because they aren't exactly true white, just to show you how it would change. First, let me go ahead and swatch the originals. Then I'm going to go ahead and swatch the light gray, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to record and time lapse me swatching over the top with the actual color, and then we'll discuss what I found. I decided that before I swatched the gray, I wanted to show you the consistency before I stirred it or anything. Now, I went ahead and scooped out some of this from the top to the bottom just so I could show you the creaminess of this paint. The consistency is so beautiful. And look at this. Now, these pots are full. We made sure that they were full. You have enough air pocket in them, and they will move around in traveling and being shipped and all that, but you should have enough to stir, you know, once you get them. But I will take out what's in the top and just mix it into it, and you should not have to add flow aid or anything to this paint when you get it. Now, because you have so many, that at some point, you know, you may have to do that, you know, over time. But I would not open any of the paint pots for the paints that you don't need until you need them. So I would imagine these will take you a while to use. That is the plan anyway, and that's why I put so many in here. So I wanted to show you, and I'll do this time lapse, the creaminess while I'm painting. Now, I do want to point out that I did not strive for opacity in these paints, because just doing one layer and then putting the color over it achieves opacity. So I mentioned that in that one video, and I'm trying to remember which video it was that I did the sneak peek of these kits, but I mentioned it there because I noticed after I swatched with the gray and then I put the color over it, it did not matter if I could still barely see my swatch line. All right. The other thing I want to mention, number one, was completely dried up and it was a white, so we're just going to skip it because it's not necessary to show it with gray underneath. And number 8 was a true white, so I would not put gray under that anyway. This one was more of a creamy white, so I was going to show you what it looked like with gray, but since it won't paint at all because it's just rubber, it's not something I'm even going to test. I have another kit that I'm going to use to show you that. So I'm just going to skip the number 1 and number 8. We're going to work on these 4. Now, number 2 could easily go to the medium gray category. We're going to test it with both. So let's go ahead and let me time lapse me painting these swatches. Woo, doggy, that's some creamy paint, if I do say so myself. The reason that is important is because it will leave you with a smooth surface for your next layer of paint. That is why that matters. So important, right? Okay, while I'm letting that dry, I'm going to go ahead and do one layer of the medium paint. Then we can go over it with our color and see how they look. Now you can cut these apart. They're gonna stay in the foam trays without any issues if you cut them apart, so no problem. Oh, creamy dreamy paints. I love you so much. Now you notice I started painting that 8 and I stopped. So if you can see all that paint pot and everything, I'm not surprised. Does my swatch look different than it did a minute ago? Well, it's only been a minute to you, but it's been a couple hours for me because, well, what happened was this weekend I had a migraine for about 3 days and I had to take naps every day. And yesterday I woke up from my little nap trying to get rid of this migraine and I ran into the cabinet, the chest of drawers in my bedroom. I don't know why, just all of a sudden I had like some kind of crazy vertigo, and I've had it before, and I can't remember what they call it, but some initials or something. BB, something, DD, whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anywho, and I've been walking into stuff ever since, been really out of it, and really dizzy, and who knows why. Just probably dehydration. I've been trying to drink water, whatever happened. So I've been super klutzy. And so you know what happened is I reached over to get something and totally hit all of the stir sticks at the same time. And when I went to upright and correct myself and not spill my non-spillable water cup, I didn't let go of the grip that I had on my stir sticks, and I just totally dumped my dirty water on my new Swatch. So I had to start over. But what was funny is I decided that I did not like the dark, really dark paint pots. So I went and sat down and took a break, drank a bunch of water, and trying to get rid of this dizziness and this weird feeling I've been having since yesterday, and which is still pretty bad. And so I lightened up my paint pots because I cannot handle it. I hate it. I can't handle it. People are like, well, I can't, the paint pots are so light. Well, if you can see a gray line through your paint, you're gonna see a black line through your paint. So that was the purpose of gray paint pots to begin with, y'all. My point is this: if it's a black paint pot and you're like, oh my God, I can see through it, and you go and you're painting a gray line and number canvas and you're prepping because you think that your paint is transparent or translucent when really it's not, because your swatch guide had black paint pots and your test was faulty, you're prepping for nothing. So does that make sense? The gray paint pots are gray for a reason, you guys. If I can see this gray, light gray paint pot through that paint, you're gonna see the black line and number if my canvas has black lines and numbers. And you're gonna see a gray line and number if my canvas has gray lines and numbers. And if it's red, you're gonna see that too. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm not trying to be extra lectury, if that's a word. Anyway, all right. Now I'm gonna go back over and paint my colors over these swatches. And we're gonna see the magic happen, all right? And I'll do that with time lapse because I like seeing the magic happens, because as this dries, you're gonna be like, what just happened? It's really cool, okay? So let's do it. Okay, so it's still kind of drying, but I want to get this up a little closer, and we're going to compare it to more of this original photo. And these are going to be darker because of the nature of a photo compared to the actual paint and calibration settings like I discussed. But what we're looking for is the difference in opacity now and with one layer of our paint over a gray primer. And then we're going to take this to our painting and we're going to do a little test on the canvas itself. Now, I did not gesso the canvas. I know I'm going against everything I've ever taught you, but you guys, time is of the essence. So you can see that in our example of number 2, this is number 2, and you see how olivey green that is in the paint and what it was originally supposed to look like. And what they sent us was this very fluorescent green. It doesn't look at all like this olive green that we should have gotten, which I was fine with because yuck. I don't want dookie green in my painting anyway. So when I first got this kit, I was like, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with it. What I had a problem with is this was like water. I mean, it was like green pee-pee water. Like it had no opacity at all. And I was livid. This was long before I had any idea about how well a gray would prime. So as far as I was concerned, this entire kit was either going to be trash or it was going to have to be replaced with paints. And I didn't have paints at the time that were the same colors and, you know, whatever. So this was just going to get set aside until I had figured out what I was going to do with it. But as you can see, you can tell the difference between a primer in the light gray and a primer in the medium. All it's going to do is change the value of the two colors. The hue is going to change, the tone is going to change. So it's just a little darker. The opacity is fine, but we're just going to have a little bit of a change in our outcome. So what you would do in this situation is you pick the one you like the best. That's it. And you decide, do I want the lighter or do I want the darker version? Whichever one you choose, that's going to be your primer base. That's the one you're going to prime every single number 2 with, and then you're going to paint over it with your number 2 color. But instead of me putting layer upon layer upon layer of number 2 and it never ever covering the line and number, I'm not going to have to do that. Yes, I'm going to have to put 2 layers of paint, but I'm only going to have to put 1 layer of primer and 1 layer of the actual color itself. So I'm saving myself so much time, and I can do that as an example in just a minute. So let's go ahead while I'm talking about it and do a little test run. I'll just take the number 2 straight up here and slap a little bit of number 2 on the canvas. You can see number 2 is shining right on through. Red lines and numbers. You can see that no matter how much that dries, that's still going to show through. Correct? So let's go through and let me look at this and say, I'm kind of liking the little bit deeper medium. So I'm going to go ahead and prime with the medium. Let's just try it out. And go in on the opposite side here in this little opening. And a lot of people are going to say, do you have to cover just the number? Do you cover the entire cell? You want to cover the entire cell, and the reason you do that is otherwise you would only have opacity over the number. And if you do that, then the rest of the color is not going to be covered. You're also going to try to cover lines where you can. So we're going to cover it as much as we can. And because I don't have gesso, I'm kind of having to fill in to make sure I've got any little divots covered. Now at this point, if I'm a person who does all the number 2s in an area, I would go ahead and I'd fill in this number 2 with my medium gray and all the number 2s in this little area, or however I like to paint, and I would have those primed, let them dry, and then I'd come back in one fell swoop and I'd go back over all of those medium grays with my number 2 and, you know, cover them all up with the actual color. But what I'll do is I'll wait for those to dry, and I will put another second layer over this number 2 with the regular color, and then we'll put a layer of that number 2 over the gray, and I will show you what I'm talking about layer after layer. All right, so while we're doing that, waiting for this to dry, let's talk about the other colors. Let's look at number 7. Number 7 on our swatch was very transparent, not quite as much as like number 2 or number 9 here, but You can, you know, obviously you can see that gray line through there. And when I put down the light gray paint, I see nothing, no line underneath. And then that pink is just a beautiful coverage, fabulous color. And it did not change the overall look, but let me explain this for anybody who hasn't seen the grays videos or any of this before. Yes, you're gonna say, oh, it's a little darker. Well, it better be, because it would have to be, because here you're seeing white through. You're seeing white shining through the color, right? Here you're seeing the gray shine through. So it's gonna darken it the way it's supposed to be. But look how dark this pink is here. It's a lot darker than this. This is because it's got white. It's got so much white shining through that it's a light, light shade of pink. It's a tint of pink. This is a shade of pink. So which one is more accurate to the original color? This one. Now, if you would say, well, why don't you go with a medium gray if you want it more like this? The only reason I wouldn't go with a medium gray is because if your base is too dark, your top layer, your original color, can look streaky. You can start seeing the dark color shine through, and you don't want that. So that's why you want to stay as close to the original value of the paint as you can with your primer. That is why the light gray is the most similar to this color here. Same with this number 9, very, very light green. The lightest light gray went under there beautifully because there is so much white. There's actually hardly any pigment in this. There's hardly any paint. So when we add the light gray underneath it, it's gonna be darker, but it's not darker to the point of changing our outcome. It's dark enough to become opaque now. That's what we want. And same with this number 10. We can see that line. It's translucent to transparent paint. We put our light gray underneath. We put our color over the top. Now we have an opaque paint, whereas before we did not. We have a beautiful tone of that aqua blue, and I am in love with this color. This whole palette is like my life. This is heaven to me. Beautiful. So let's go back over here. Let's see if it's dry enough. Yeah, I'm the only person in the world that would just go like this, right? Let's see, because I ain't scared. So let's go ahead and go over the top with our second layer and see what happens. And then let's go over our gray. Make sure I got you in the camera here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but I can see number 2 shining through clear as day right here. So it means at least 3 coats. This one's gonna be fine as it is. That one's done with 2. So we're gonna just continue to watch and see on that one. So real quickly, we'll just try another color while we're waiting for that to dry. And then we'll go to another mini kit that had a lot of deep reds and very difficult palette. So I can show you what you do with the darker colors and the medium to dark range. So we can just stay right up in this area. Let's do number 10. We know that we're going to use a light gray primer. I'll just do one of these openings here that I can reach better. So you'll notice I'm going ahead and I'm covering up the red line while I'm priming. While that is wet, let's go back over one more time with our number 2 straight up. Now you'll notice I do thin layers. I don't clump it on. That way if I have to go back and put on some more, it's not going to be thick and clumpy and whatever. I've got 3 layers of paint. I still see that number 2. Can I put down a layer of gray now? Is it too late? Well, because I only put thin layers when I'm painting, I'm gonna put down a layer of gray. And I'm gonna put down a thin layer before I put down another layer of that number 2 straight up and stop wasting my time. Because I could go and put another layer and another layer and another layer, and I could sit here and do that 10 times and I might still see that number 2. So why would I continue to waste my time when I could go put one layer of primer with gray and one layer of that color and be done with it? I've already covered that number 2 just with that little thin layer. So I know that the next layer is going to cover the number 2, and then I'm going to have my green and I'm going to be done with that cell and I'm going to stop wasting time. So what have you heard me say before? And if you haven't heard me say it before, you will hear me say it from here on out. Work smarter, not harder. Do not create more work for yourself than you have to. That is what the Swatch Guide is supposed to help you prevent. That is what the original Swatch Guide is supposed to help you prevent, is time wasted, you guys. These are tools that will help you save time and enjoy what you're doing. So that is why they were created. They're created for people like me who cannot stay on task, who cannot stay focused, or who don't want to waste that valuable 30 minutes of putting down a layer of paint and paint and paint and paint and then realizing I just wasted time. I'm gonna have to go back and do something different. So that's what this is all about. All right, now that light gray has dried over number 10. So let's go put our layer over the top and we will let that dry and put our layer of number 2 over the top. We will be finished with this little piece and we'll move on to some darker colors in the next project. And that color now brings me happiness and joy. And it's funny how colors do that for me. It's funny how painting does that for me. So, of course, being dizzy and out of my mind, I forgot to push the record button. Oh my God, you would think I'd never done this before. I just did it. I just painted it and then you didn't see it. But I put the next final layer over that and it was beautiful. And it's now perfect. And you missed it, but you did get to see the before and after because you saw what it looked like before. The purpose of this is to say 2 layers and I could have been done. Thank God this is a mini. But you guys, I created this kit and called it a survival kit for this purpose. I don't want you giving up on a paint by number kit or throwing it out or getting so frustrated that you are just at your wit's end, because there are solutions to every problem in paint by number. All right, let's move on to the next palette in the mediums and the darks and talk about those for a little bit.